Hot take, but I think playing games with our friends for fun should relieve stress, not create it. I think we should leave game night feeling better than we did going into it. And if that's already true for you, then congrats. There are tons of people in the tabletop community, including me, who report experiencing stress tied to their games. Players and DMs alike are grappling with everything from managing prep time to performance.
What's up? My name's Cam. Welcome to Rogue's Roll Call. A couple of weeks ago, Ginny D, who I'm sure you're more than familiar with at this point, made a video that I think is just great. It's like a discussion video about the stresses that can come with playing TTRPGs as a game master, as a player, and there's some of the stuff that she discussed in that video that I would like to chat about as well, just from my own personal perspective.
DMing is a whole different animal. We're supposed to be part babysitter, part fantasy historian, part improv comic, with an encyclopedic knowledge of the rules and the patience of a DMV employee at closing time. There's so much to keep track of. Storylines, loot, mechanics, NPCs, player backstories, and all this while you're trying to make sure everyone's having fun and staying engaged.
So as my group's forever DM, I can really vouch for the pressure that can come with that, with being the DM, and especially being the main DM. I definitely think it's something that gets way easier the more you do it. I don't want to be vague though, so I'll give some examples. Some of the stuff for me personally that caused a bit of stress was things like, well, most importantly, making sure that my players felt like they were a part of the story, an important part of the story, I should say. A lot of balancing issues as well, balancing the game's rules with the freedom for the players to just do cool shit. You know, there's a lot of situations where as the DM you're like, technically what they're doing here is against the rules, but at the same time, it's creating such a cool story moment. Knowing when to draw the line there without seeming like a bit of a dick sometimes can be a bit stressful. Also, balancing combat. Balancing is a lot of what makes being a DM difficult. But the thing with balance, and I know this is a bit of a cliche, so I apologize in advance, but it really does just come with practice. And I'm not saying I'm amazing at it or anything like that either, but it's just something that's gotten a lot easier the more or the longer I've been a dungeon master. My mate's running a one-shot at the moment, and he said that was the main thing that he was concerned about, is balancing the combat encounters. Because as all Dungeons and Dragons players know, the method for balancing encounters at the moment, the CR ratings, it's the biggest piece of dog shit. Obviously, the most helpful thing for relieving stress as a dungeon master is just to have a good group. I know, easier said than done. But having a group that won't give you shit if you slip up here and there or have a few fumbles creatively, having people that are just gonna kind of roll with the punches there and just give you a chance to do better next time, that's invaluable. And before you say it, because I know someone out there's already thinking it, Ginny addresses this.
And you might be saying, well, if DMing is so hard, then why'd you volunteer for it? But it really isn't that black and white. You can love something and be stressed out by it. But there are also some people who consider themselves unwilling forever DMs. People who don't love DMing, but know that if they're not running the game, there is no game. Press F to pay respects. So yeah, some people would be experiencing stress around these things, even in a vacuum. But we don't exist in a vacuum. And the online community around tabletop games can amplify these kinds of stresses.
It could very easily be said that a lot of the stresses of being a DM, a dungeon master or a game master, are self-imposed. I love being a DM. I love even being a forever DM, even if I do wish I could be a player a little more often. But yeah, having the responsibility of creating an entertaining time for 4 to 5 players for 4 to 5 hours at a time, sometimes it can make you sweat a little bit.
People are getting attention and followers, and in some cases real money, for creating controversy. No wonder so many people are out here tweeting whatever hot take about D&D is gonna rile everyone up this week.
So when I watched this part of Ginny's video, I gave it some thought, and I think there's some real merit to this point. It obviously does happen in every niche, but yeah, in TTRPGs as well, in the YouTube, TikTok, whatever space, even specifically in Dungeons and Dragons, this happens as well, rage bait content or fear bait content, if you want to put it that way. Now, don't get me wrong, there is a lot happening in the TTRPG, let's say corporate spaces, that is cause for alarm and should absolutely be called out. But I have to agree that there's certain corners of this community, of this niche, that are becoming literally dependent on D&D being a constant shit show. If something isn't going wrong in the TTRPG spaces or communities, if D&D doesn't suck, they don't have any content. And the sad truth is, as Ginny pointed out, that's the type of content that tends to be the most popular. So if you consume a lot of TTRPG content online, when the topic of TTRPGs or especially Dungeons and Dragons comes up in conversation, the first thing that's going to come to your mind is that negative stuff. So with that in mind, it raises the question, is the state of D&D, TTRPGs in general, is it really as bad as the online ecosystem would have us believe? Or are we maybe just not seeing or hearing a lot of the good stuff that's happening as well? It's just something to think about, you know?
Making TikToks where they recount a story about a game master so evil that you almost can't believe it's real.
I've done D&D horror story videos. They're fun. I get Ginny's point here. I know she's not like explicitly throwing shade, but if I can make a defense of those types of videos, ironically, the end result of videos where we talk about problem DMs or problem players, etc., the end result is actually usually pretty positive. The comment sections of those videos are some of the most supportive spaces I've ever seen in the roleplay community. Apparently, nothing unites a group of TTRPG players like having a bad DM to team up against. And that's not advice.
One of the first things you learn as a creator on YouTube is that the title and thumbnail are the gatekeepers of your video. If you can't inspire a strong emotion in the fraction of a second that somebody scrolls past your thumb, then nobody clicks on it. And nobody sees any of the hard work that you've put into that 3-day, life-sized mimic build.
That mimic build is kind of crazy though. So the last thing I made was this guy right here.
Maybe you and your players were perfectly satisfied with your game, but then you read somebody's impassioned essay on Reddit about how bad DMPCs are, and now you're wondering if you've messed up by letting Wiggly Two-Toes Crankshaft, the Goblin Locksmith, travel with the party.
Oh, can I do a self-plug? Is that okay? I made a whole video about DMPCs, kind of in defense of them and why they're actually kind of cool. Within reason.
Does Ginny always carry a sword? Well, yeah. I think I've been pretty clear about that last one.
Me too.
If you're comparing your home game to games featuring professional actors and comedians who are performing for an audience, you're setting a bar for yourself and your table that you will almost certainly fall short of. Not many people will feel great about their GM skills if they're using Matt Mercer or Brennan Lee Mulligan as a yardstick.
I've talked about this too in my video about Critical Role, and I doubt you need anyone else telling you to not compare your game to theirs. But I do want to comment on this point with my own personal example. So I've been DMing for my current group now for about 2 years, and truth be told, of the 4 of them, one of them kind of does 90% of the talking. The other 3 are just kind of a bit more reserved with their roleplay. And for a long time, I thought that was the result of me being a bad DM or them being bad players, blah, blah, blah. So my solution was to literally just throw NPC conversations at them and kind of force it, try to forcibly extract roleplay from them. And what do you know, I ended up stressing out my players. The truth is, and I know sometimes it can really suck setting up a great, what you think is going to be a great dialogue and just getting blank stares back. While that does suck, if you're the DM, you really do just kind of have to give the players the time and space they need to roleplay in their own way. After enough time, they might come out of their shell, or maybe at the end of the day, that's just how they roleplay. That's if you're the DM. If you're the player, then all I would say is quite literally just talk to your DM and tell them exactly what type of roleplay you're comfortable with. If you don't like talking all that much, let them know. That way, they can set up situations that are still fun for you that don't involve those things that you're not super comfortable with. You can still be involved in the game without having to do a bunch of the talking, Anyway, I changed my strategy from forcing roleplay to quite literally just presenting opportunities for the players to insert themselves, to engage with the roleplay if they choose to. I also kind of feel like I'm making roleplay synonymous with talking and dialogue, and that's not always the case. You can also just roleplay through making your character do physical stuff. Anyway, that's the way I did it. That was my solution, just presenting opportunities. And fast forward to today, and now our quietest player is role-playing as a pretty chatty orc, complete with an orcish voice. My point is, if I go into the game expecting performances from my players on par with Sam Riegel, and if they go into the game expecting a performance from the DM on par with Matt Mercer, it's going to stress everyone out. Ginny goes on to lay out a 4-step plan for reducing stress in your D&D games, but if you want to see that, you're going to have to go watch her video. I'll leave a link. Now, me personally, I think one of the best things about TTRPGs is the absolute freedom to make changes to the rules and the mechanics of the game until it's as fun as it can be for everyone at the table. people seem to forget that that's a thing you can do. It's not like a video game where there's code stopping you from doing this kind of stuff. You can literally make this game whatever you want. You're a smart cookie. You don't need me telling you how to solve conflict at the table with your players or your DM or both. But maybe next time you're online, just focus a bit more on what's great about D&D or what's going right with D&D, rather than just getting too sucked into the constant doomer spiral of videos talking about how D&D is nothing but caca and poo-poo now. And to be clear, that's not me in denial. I know there is plenty to be criticized about Dungeons and Dragons right now. Just don't get too lost in the sauce is all I'm saying. It's a game at the end of the day. The moment Dungeons and Dragons stops being fun, you're not playing the game anymore, you know? Anyway, check Ginny D out. She's great. Subscribe below for more Dungeons and Dragons videos. Take it easy, guys. Next time you're feeling stressed out, just don't be. Go ahead and tell your DM that I said you can roll with advantage.